Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Where's that coming from? Testing, testing. Oh, from the computer up there. Hold on, I can turn that computer on down. Testing, testing. So just realize that if you do need computer audio up there, we're gonna.
We do not.
Okay, perfect. Testing, testing, testing for the iPhone test. Testing, testing, testing. Yep, we got it. Sounds great to me. Video looks better than normal. Testing, testing. Guess it's got better lighting this time. I don't know. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Right. Oh, so you just slide it. Okay.
I'll walk outside.
We cannot hear you. Unmute. Attendee. They're present.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me?
We still hear nothing.
You're not hearing to you right now?
We still
That's
hear
not a good
nothing.
thing.
Still nothing. Mm-mm.
So how is the audio
You-
getting back
What
to
just
the
happened?
we can
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can. We can hear you very well.
Yay! Success.
Can anybody hear? I think I heard it.
Is it on? Is your microphone on?
We're on.
Okay.
All right. Good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock. Let's get the party started. I'd like to call to order the Echo Advisory Committee meeting for Thursday, May 13th, 2021. Jill, would you like to do the roll call, please?
Jay Pendergast,
Here.
Pat Northey, Jeffrey Alt, Sarah Lee Morrissey. Here. Pat Patterson.
Here.
David Romeo. Reggie Santilli. Stacy Simmons.
Here.
And Jack Surratt. David just came in. We have a quorum.
Okay, super. With that, has the board had a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting that you received in your package?
Yes, I have a comment.
Okay.
On the April 1 minutes, under the motion, it does not reflect that the chair gave the gavel to the vice chair in order to make a motion. And I think that's important for the minutes to reflect that.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good addition. Thank you, Sarah.
Can
There was
you,
also a
can you
misspelling, am I
clarify?
right?
Okay, sorry. Can you clarify where that is? There's 11 pages here. Sorry.
I don't have it up.
Okay,
So where the motion,
It's on page 6.
yeah, where the motion is made.
there's, got it. And Stacy, you had a correction as well?
Just the spelling of my name.
And same.
I guess none of us are in spell check. Okay, with that, do I have a motion to approve? Motion to approve. A second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the minutes have been approved. The Echo listening sessions are next on the list. In your packet, we've received a synopsis that Jill put together of all of the sessions. And that's really today for us to have to review and comment on later. We don't have time to do it today. And what we have done is I made the suggestion that possibly we have another meeting where we can go over all of the comments from the listening session so that, you know, there'll be ample time for everyone to comment and review that. We have come up with some, and if the committee would like to have a separate meeting to do that, we have come up with some dates. And honestly, the reason I'm suggesting that is because I'd really like us to move forward so that we can bring all this to the county council so that we can get back to having a grant cycle and moving forward with the program. So if it's not too much of an inconvenience, this has been a very unusual year. Normally we only have a few meetings, and this year we've probably had more in 2 months than an entire year. But I would like to open that for discussion with the board. And Donna has some potential dates.
Sure. So for the next 4 Thursdays, the 20th, 27th, 3rd, and 10th, we have space available here in DeLand, either in the council chambers or training room or in this building. So if any or all of those work for you all, we will gladly schedule them and get them advertised.
Okay, so we're talking about one meeting,
Yes.
and would it be at 1 o'clock in the afternoon?
That's when we checked, sorry, a little loud there. It's when we checked the calendars for. It's traditionally the day and time of Echo meetings. We can change them to a different day and time if that does not work for the majority.
Well, I'm just gonna start a thought if that's all right.
Okay.
Yes.
I can do, if they're at 1 o'clock, I could do the 27th and the 10th.
Okay. I'll go ahead, Vern. I could do the 3rd or the 10th.
I can do the 10th.
I can do any of the days. I would just as soon do the first available.
10th is good. I can do the 27th, 28th, or 30th. 10th, 27th.
Yeah, yeah, but I think you're right, Mr. Chairman, the sooner the better. And I guess maybe the 10th is the day that seems to be working.
Anything but the 20th.
Okay. Is the 10th okay with everyone then? We'll set that meeting. Thank you.
Super. Thank you very much.
At 1.
No,
Got to be at 1.
We're gonna be here or across the street. I think that's available across the street.
Council chambers are available that day. We'll let you know ahead of time.
Thank you.
Okay, with that settled, we're now moving forward with new business.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
again, I asked before about how the recommendations are going to be submitted so that we can look at it and go through it. Are we going to be left with the minutes of the meetings where we need to extract the recommendations, or will there be a list created?
Actually, Jack, in today's packet,
Oh,
there's already a summary.
great.
Just to explain this, it was done by category.
Yes.
And then when the comment was made, session 1, so forth, and there's a guide to explain, listening session 1 is S1, and a comment number on that was provided as well. And then in the back, we provided all of the comments that we received from the survey, because that's a little bit different format, because we asked about the recommended changes that were already presented or decided upon by the previous ECHO board.
So I assume that'll be the core of the meeting on the 10th, will be that.
Correct. We'll probably lay it out so that you can go through each one, give us direction. We probably will go through what has already been recommended to kind of get a nod and see if any of these fit in there and if there's any adjustments, or continue on with the same topic.
Good, thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, we're moving forward with new business. It's kind of a sad day. We have people rescinding grants. We've received one from City of New Smyrna Beach. It was in your packet. Michelle's here if you would like to give a presentation or say anything, Michelle.
Thank you. Is that better?
Yes.
My name is Michelle Valance. I'm the Capital Projects Manager for the City of New Smyrna Beach. I agree with the tone there. We regret to have to do this return of the grant for this very important project for the city. We are very gracious of Volusia County, ECHO, and all the projects we've been able to achieve. The reason for the return is underestimating the cost and the repair approach. We have 100% plans that we will be bidding this upcoming fiscal year, and applying for a new grant is the intent to get the necessary funds to execute the project properly. And we thank you for your support. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Thank you. I do have a question for the attorney, Ross. Does this have to go to the council for their approval?
Sorry,
Oops.
Heather
Oh.
Wallace,
Oh,
Deputy County Attorney.
Good.
Yes, it would need to go back to council.
okay. Thank you. The next item is from Beth Lemke regarding the Florida Hospital Community Gardens. I don't see Beth here. I believe it's the same thing. They just don't, the letter was in the packet. It explained that they're having difficulty with volunteers and the change of in climate lately with COVID. So if I would just say we should accept it. So with that, we'll move.
Beth is online.
Oh, then here comes Beth.
Beth, you need to unmute your mic, please.
There we go. Okay. Sorry, it said muted by organizer, wouldn't, but I think I'm here now. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
And I am here on behalf of Advent Health Fish Memorial Foundation. And, you know, as you all know, I'm sure COVID-19 pandemic is really the reason that this project did not complete. It really obviously hit the healthcare industry hard. And that completely shifted the hospital's focus to community healthcare needs. So that's really the story behind this one. You know, the hospital is very grateful for the grant funds and is saddened that they weren't able to complete this project. But right now it's on hold indefinitely, you know, pending just the current situation for the healthcare industry right now. So if you, you know, if you have any questions or anything, I'd be happy to answer them. I can't see who's online, so I'm not sure if Kit Twinter was able to make it, but she should be online as well. If she was able to make it today, if you had any further questions.
Kit,
I'm online. I'm not sure. Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to say thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the entire advisory committee, as well as the council members, for their support. I know this has been many years working on this project. We got a little momentum at the beginning of last year, right before COVID hit. And then COVID really put a damper on the main key points of this project, which was it was very volunteer focused. So unfortunately, we weren't able to welcome volunteers to the site to continue the work, as well as the main contributors that we had projected had pulled their pledges for the funding. So the funding was really nominal. But I can't thank you enough for going forward with this project during really uncertain times. You know, there was a couple of extensions that took place prior to my coming on board. So I know this was a lot of work on behalf of the committee to review the work, and thank you for your support. If you have any further questions, please let me know.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
how much money had we paid out on that grant, and are they returning those funds?
I don't think anything was paid out.
I can answer that if you like. This is Kit Twinter, the development officer for the foundation, and we have received reimbursements that total $59,172.71, which we plan to reimburse. We will be requesting that the council review and approve to release the 40-year restrictive covenant, and then we will swiftly refund the check.
Sounds like a plan. Okay.
That was in their letter. They said they were going to return the money.
Okay. Well, now we're moving forward with the quarterly reports on the open grants. Progress updates. We have Chris with the YMCA.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Oh, Steve. Hey, I will update you that we made some tremendous progress on both grants, but I'll talk about Ormond first. I emailed to Jill, and if you put in the packet, the playground for Ormond. Now, Ormond and Deland both I have re-engineered, or I should say value engineered. I found this playground to be a little bit unnecessary with price per square foot and usage of those playgrounds. So we're able to come in well less than what we have budgeted under ECHO, but the playground for Ormond has been ordered. It will be here in 6 to 8 weeks. China steel permitting and shipping. Have not decided on the flooring, but I will not do the poured rubber flooring as that's a $50,000 expense. I think it's unnecessary for that site. So we're determining, I think we're going to go with the artificial grass cushion underneath. It's much less. So we'll have that installed. My plan is before the end of summer. If all goes well with the shipping. Beaumar construction is pricing out the gates. I'm trying to match the fencing to be the same as around the outdoor pool. That is aluminum fencing with center block pillars. A little bit more to it than just putting up chain link fence. But I think it'll look well on the property as it will balance out the fencing on each side of the main structure. So Beaumar is working on a price for that. And as you know, in the construction field, things are a little bit tight right now. Hopefully they'll have something to me soon. And also the metal, the aluminum for the fencing could be a little bit tight to getting that, but we're working on it. So we're moving forward there. On the DeLand project, I'd like to bring that back up. We have made tremendous progress on that. We have raised the funds since we met to do that project. Again, I evaluated engineer that down to about 25,000. We have raised well over half of that. So we have our matching part and everything has been ordered. So I don't know if you have that in your packet also, but I emailed that to Jill. So the problem is I hope to get it done actually by June 11th, but here's the issue. They told me May 5th it'd be shipped. Now it won't be shipped till May 20th because it didn't get there in time. The rubber mulch and borders we will have, and the other issue is a sign. So from my understanding, for it to be complete, the sign needs to be up, the permanent sign needs to be up. Talking with sign companies, they're having problems getting hold of the metal to make the sign and also having staff to do the sign. We found someone who may be able to do it in 3 weeks, but he can't guarantee it. So my ask is this: if we could have an extension, since we have everything ordered, everything should be in by June 11th, which is the deadline, but I can't guarantee it. I hate to lose that matching grant. I also have an email from Earl Culbert, and the email I sent to Jill today is from Earl saying that we have raised the funds necessary. So you don't have to believe me this time. You can believe Earl. And if you know Earl's a pretty upstanding guy. So he's been the one behind raising the funds. So my ask is we could have a month or 2 extension on the DeLand project to guarantee we get the sign in and everything else is done on that project. So latest, we're looking at the end of August. I want to get in a lot sooner because again, I need a playground there for kids. Just a side note, as I said last time, our summer camp numbers continue to be surprisingly good. Camp Winona is now the best it's been in 15 years, just FYI. We are 4 times what we were pre-COVID, and our day camps are running double of what they were pre-COVID numbers, sometimes triple at some of our locations. So the playgrounds to me are very important to get in before summer ends for that reason too. Questions?
I guess my question is, you said 1 month or 2 months. Why don't we just give you 60 days? And that gives you the maximum time to deal with. I'm working with construction also, and I understand that there's shortages of just about everything. So I would recommend giving you the 60 days.
Mr. Chairman, okay, Chris, I think what I heard you say on the first project, on the Ormond Beach project, is that it was a significantly changed. If that's the case, I think that project needs to come back here for a review.
I was talking about the playground.
What I mean is that the playground equipment that I'm using is different company than what was advertised. The square footage, actually, the playgrounds are the same. It's just equipment that.
So you're not making any change to the footprint of the playground or to the kind of equipment that's going, not the kind, but the.
It's the manufacturer I changed.
Just the manufacturer.
I found someone much more economical with more bells and whistles.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go along with 60 days, but that's it. I mean, I'm really getting tired of this.
Well, Ormond may be a little longer because it's a bigger playground and they have to order and make it stuff. The land is 60 days. Ormond, you gave me by the end of the year, give you a plan. I'm giving you a plan, but the land I need 60 days. Ormond may be a little longer because it's more involved. It's a fencing. It's a bigger site. Understand? We have the money for Ormond. It's just it's a bit bigger site. and you say come back with a
But you've
plan.
ordered the equipment for
Ormond.
DeLand.
Yeah, DeLand is ordered and hopefully be shipped soon. Ormond, they won't get it for another 6 to 8 weeks. The company that I ordered from, because it's a much larger playground. See, when you order playgrounds, you have two choices. You can try to order what's in stock, which is very low nowadays, or you can order it and they have to make it. DeLand, I found something in stock and I was able to get it. Ormond, they have to make it because it's much bigger, much more involved.
But, okay, so I think one of the issues at the last meeting was the match, whether you had the match. And you're saying, that- so how I don't want to say how do you prove that, but how do you prove that?
I can
'Cause
have.
that was an issue.
Yeah.
And
Well,
frankly, Chris, there's all kinds of rumors floating around.
Well,
Right.
I can tell you right now, the rumors are not true. The death of the YMCA is highly exaggerated. We actually had the month of March, we were in the black. So
Okay.
So going back to that, I can have Latoya CFO send you the P&L, but in the past, and I said pre-me, the numbers you got sometimes are moved around. That's why I have an email from Earl Colbert. I figured Earl would have more credibility than me. That says that we have the matching funds for DeLand. And we have it for Ormond. Ormond, we've always had it. It's a matter of dealing with COVID and other issues I had to deal with for the construction. DeLand was a question. So we have it for DeLand. Earl's raised it. He said he'll write a check for the balance himself. We have it.
Mr. Chair, in terms of proving match, we regularly require bank statements that show that the account is made for this purpose.
Mhm.
And that's what's considered acceptable documentation of a match.
We have that.
So do we have that?
We do not have it at this time.
I can have it to you by the end of the day. So that's easy. That's the easy part to have. That we have.
Okay, well, if you'd send us the information, I mean,
Yeah, I can have it to you by the end of the day, the bank records that shows we have the money. That's,
I'm sorry.
You can make a motion pending the receipt of bank statements proving that the match is there, if that's what you want to do. Or you can wait until the next meeting.
Can you remind me, when does they're both from 18, when do they actually expire?
DeLand is June 11th. Ormond, I'm not too sure.
they've
DeLand expires on
Expired.
June 12th. The Ormond one is July 8th, I believe.
So he said 60 days.
mhm.
60 days isn't going to do it.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like 60 days will do it.
It sounds like it's certainly not for Ormond.
Right.
No, Ormond will not. DeLand will. DeLand will. Ormond will not.
But you've got these are two different projects. I mean,
Correct.
They're two different grants or
And
two
they're
different
lumped-
projects.
Right. They're lumped together, I guess.
Well, no, actually, they are different grants.
Oh, they are.
They are
This is
different
Well,
grants.
shouldn't we be determining what each of them?
We should
the
make a
deadline should
motion
be
on each grant
Yes.
separately.
Yes.
Yes. So I would say, would someone like to make a motion for the DeLand playground?
Yeah, I'll make a motion for the DeLand playground to be 60 days deadline.
Okay, do we need to do a roll or is a voice vote adequate? Voice is fine. All in favor? Aye. Okay, now let's discuss the Ormond Beach Playground.
Right.
That seems to be like it's going to take more time.
Yeah, it will take more time for two reasons. One is the stuff's been ordered. So it's been ordered. It's going to be 6 to 8 weeks. Fingers crossed. We'll see because they have to manufacture it. Second part is the fencing. I need to get a quote from Beaumar Construction on the fencing. I'm waiting on that. So those are the two issues. Funding is not an issue. It's just a matter of getting the equipment and getting the price on the fence, and then we're good to go there.
Yes.
I would make a motion that we review this in 90 days. And in between, that we direct the YMCA to provide the information regarding the match being in place, because I would like to confirm that. Not that I don't believe you, Chris, but I'd like to confirm that. And that for me, this is it, 90 days. Unless where there's a plan in place that is really something that is, it just sounds so loosey-goosey. I'm sorry. It just sounds loosey-goosey to me, but I will make a motion for 90 days.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
I think we'll discuss all this again though.
Also, Chris, while we have you here, isn't
Good
there
luck, huh?
another grant, the Ormond Beach Trail?
Yes.
And can you bring us up to date on that?
That was, yeah, that's, I need to get the Ormond playground done, honestly, before I even start working on that one.
Carter,
So I haven't done much on it.
can you state that project number, please, that you're referring to?
It's
Chair?
the agenda has the same number as the playground and the aquatic, 18-11.
If you refer to the quarterly report, it's 19-12.
Yeah, I haven't done any work on that one yet. I've been trying to get the other two guys done.
Okay, so you'll be coming back to us with a update
On that item?
on, when can you come back to us with an update on that? Because we can't let these just keep rolling on.
I agree. Let me get with the board of directors because I need their feedback on that project, see how viable they think it still is. And then I'll come back to you on that.
So at our next regularly scheduled ECHO meeting?
Yeah, I can do that.
Would you come visit us again?
Sure, 3 months in a row, not a problem. Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for Chris?
So there's no deadline. So we're not extending, we're just leaving it open-ended relative to the trails.
For the third, the trail one, yes.
The trail is open until the next meeting and he'll bring us an update?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, while we're in the city of Ormond Beach, Loretta Maceo, I'm sure I messed that up. Let's hear about some tennis court lighting.
Hi, Loretta Moisio, City of Ormond Beach. The tennis court lighting on May 4th, the City Commission approved the contract for that project, and we will be getting started in the summer, and it will be complete before Thanksgiving. And if you have any specific questions on the project, we'll be happy to answer them.
When was the project supposed to be complete?
It's still within its period. The actual end date of the grant is March 2nd, 2022. So, we're a little off just by a couple of months.
I have a question, maybe a dumb question, but under the design complete, when I look at our quarterly report, you're at 0. Is this replacement, as I recall?
Yes, the lights are going to be removed and replaced and upgraded. Yes, so it will, as soon as we get, or the contractor gets materials, it will be removed and replaced. And the project engineer or managers here, if you'd like any more specifics.
Well, I was just curious if there's any design that needs to be done for this. No? Yes, please.
I was just curious how your progress is with your signage. Have you run into any problems with getting signage after the completion is done?
No, we haven't. You mean for the final ECHO signage?
Correct.
No, we've not had any issues with that.
Thank you.
In the past. Hopefully we won't.
Well, hearing no further questions, thank you for your update.
Thank you.
Okay, we're just running right through this today. City of Port Orange, Amanda? I'm not going to mess up your last name. Would you give us an update on the rec center?
Yes, Amanda Lasecki, Grants Manager, City of Port Orange, and I have with me from Parks and Rec as well.
Peter Ferreira, Deputy Parks and Recreation Director.
So a little bit about our rec center. We actually just completed the bidding process, and kind of similar to what Chris was talking about, as you all know, the construction costs are up considerably. our cost came at $1.4 million more than we had estimated, unfortunately. The good news is we went back to City Council and they did approve the difference. City Council is going to pay the extra 1.4 million. So that's the good news. A little bit about the award. I'll have Peter talk a little bit about that.
So we did go through the bid process, as Amanda mentioned. It goes to council May 18th for the intent to award, and we have a pre-construction meeting scheduled for May 26th.
So that's our update. If there's any questions on the rec center.
Can you just remind me, what was the original construction budget?
2 million?
It was 3 million, and we had, with the ECHO funds plus the city match, was 1.6, and then we had identified 1.4 through impact fees, and then after the bidding process, they came in at about 4.4.
So that's about a 30% increase. That's pretty typical of what everybody's seeing.
Sure.
Are there any further questions for our buddies from Port Orange? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
City of Deltona, Festival Hoop Dreams.
They're not here.
Are they online? Are they virtual or something? Okay, we'll just continue that to the next meeting. Goodness, back to you, Michelle, City of New Smyrna Beach.
Hi, me again. I have a lot of information. If you have any questions, I'm prepared. I think Jill was able to help me get you a little visual printout to follow along with some photos for all three of these. I'm just a visual person, so I figured it could help tell our story a little bit more. Starting with the oldest grant, the First Baptist Church acquisition, that particular project, I would say, unfortunately, is almost ready. We're about to request the remaining grant monies in the next 2 weeks for that grant. The holdup for that was the parking lot. When we bought the property, our match in the approach at that time was to construct the parking lot in advance of the building renovation. Logistically, that wasn't going to work. And so this last little piece of finishing this parking lot for the overall annex renovation is what's holding up that reimbursement request. You can see in some of the photos, the parking lot is complete. We just have to stripe it. Why we can't stripe it is our landscaper is coming in next week to finish his installation of plants, and then we can stripe the following week. So after that, I'll be able to request that project's reimbursement and close it out. We're very excited for that one to reach its end, but it's been a long time coming. Regarding the echo plaque, we'll have one echo plaque for both grants on that site. We do have the echo plaque. It's on site, ready to be hung. Again, we are just almost to the end, so I've got my little picture of the plaque. It's proof. And then as far as the other grant for that site is the actual renovation of the facility itself. We have had a number of issues with the construction, as you all may recall. Our most recent one was unfortunate. In the month of April, we were about to finish the project, had to shut the building down for 5 weeks. We get to open the doors next Tuesday. The issue was air quality concerns. Age of that building, old wood. It was the right thing to do for the city to make it the decision to ensure a safe environment for the folks that will be living in that building. So once we get over that hurdle, right now the contract completion date is June 16th. I know that the grant deadline is July for that project. So again, we'll be just right up against the back end of that. And we'll be working closely with Jill. She's been great all along with these projects to request reimbursement for that one as well. And our last grant that has also had its challenges is our Women's Club project. Again, historic preservation, stabilization, 1924 building. That one is different in nature in that it's stick built. Lot of settling issues, foundation problems, and where the turning point for us on that project was, we were ready to go when that project was approved by the ECHO board in 2019. We had our plans. We decided to shut the building down in September and October when the project was budgeted with the city, again, after getting the wonderful award. And at that time, we did some exploratory demolition. We determined in that exploratory demolition, you can see on some of the photos, we were able to cut open the ceilings, get up into the trusses. There was a fire apparently in the building in the 30s. Nobody on the design team was aware of that. So between that and a lacking footing foundation under the whole building, it took the project and skyrocketed the estimated cost. Again, another victim here of coming in with a grant and then having some things change along the way. But what the city commission finally voted to do for that particular project at staff's recommendation is, let's just stabilize the foundation for now. Let's break it into 2 phases. We worked for many months with the design team on where is that break logistically in the construction. And we're ready to move forward with GLE Architects on doing that design. It's been 6 months of negotiating with them. Our mindset with this project is plan twice, build once. And of course that takes time and kind of hurts us on these schedules with you guys. But we also received good news this week about the Senate making a recommendation for grant funding on that project as some of the local funding initiatives. So we'll hopefully find out that good news later this year. So again, to get some more funding support to allow that project to be what it really wants to be. That project too will likely have a time extension request because it expires this summer as well. Happy to answer any questions on all 3 of those projects. Okay, thank you.
Is there an extension for the Women's Club? Are you asking for an extension of time?
We haven't formally submitted that, but that reality is now here.
Yeah.
As of the last quarterly reports, we did have that conclusion to move forward. We don't want to return the grant like the old fort, because that was kind of on the table of discussion because the funding and the delays was that their best approach to treat that very similarly. But now that we're getting some traction here again and the good news with the funding, we will likely request a time extension and not need any additional funds from Volusia County ECHO.
Okay, so the extent where we should expect the extension in the short
I would, yes,
term?
yes, sir, yes, yep. And now that we again have a bit more of a tighter scope with the architect, they can better back into their schedule on design, bidding, construction. They shouldn't take any longer than 4 to 6 months on the design of the foundation. Half of it's already done anyways. So we need to firm up that schedule in order to know what we're asking for, I think, on a time request.
Any further questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to old business. The good news is we addressed it under new business. So we can cross off number 4. So we're now at number 5, which is public participation.
Joe Forte.
Good afternoon. First of all, let me say just thank you again for last year when you ranked our pickleball project as #1 and the county council approved that. That is done. It's complete and it's very successful. What they thought was going to be about 350 members is over 720 members right now. So I'm coming to you with the complete opposite problem, what you just heard from most of your other candidates, your applicants. I'm coming to beg for you to allow us to apply for a grant when the project is already started. We're looking to build phase 2. I know it's not a good thing. We're looking to build phase 2, which is another 24 courts and a championship court. And the championship court is going to be undercover along with 2 other courts. But in addition to that championship court, it's going to be used as a public performance area. We'll be able to bring in small entertainment. It could be anything from small weddings and parties to small music entertainment, open to the public. Another anticipated very successful program. Phase 2 is anticipated to be used for training the youth. Pickleball is coming down into the schools. The schools are, at least the Holly Hill School is participating with us over there. And they want to open this up to training of the younger folks, as well as training of coaches and referees and all the others. So we started the architectural engineering work on it, and they want to get the project started. They don't want to have to wait a year. We finished pickleball phase 1 in record time. It's probably one of the few grants you've approved. It was done in a year. And we're coming to you and I'm saying we're going to do phase 2 and we're going to get it done in a year. If you'll allow me to get the project started, we'll go through the grant process. I'm not looking for a promise that'll be approved. I'm only looking for commitment that we won't be penalized because it gets started. So we'll go through the entire process. And if the grant is successful on its own merits, wonderful. If it's not on the merits of the application and it's denied for other reasons, we would accept that. But I'm looking to allow us to get started on a project before the grant is approved. Complete opposite problem you've ever had before.
When you say get the project started, are you talking about construction or just the design?
No, architectural and engineering work is nearly completed. We anticipated phase 2 to be $2 million. And as the folks have told you, cost of construction's gone up. We're anticipating it to be $4 million. This is a philanthropic venture where the Martins are putting the money into this, and the city through the CRA fund is contributing now up to $1 million. But it's gone over the anticipated budget. So they would like to start construction probably in about 3 or 4 months. They want to be done by this time next year. So this could be another record-breaking ECHO grant program that you can hang your hat on as a great success if we can get this done with this special request.
What amount of money are you asking for?
We'll ask for $400,000 to go toward the covered court area of the championship court and performance areas. So we would look to make that the joint project, the single purpose area.
Yeah. And Mr. Chairman, is there a reason we can't do a grant on a project that's already started?
Well, I would say proceed at your own risk.
And that's exactly right. We would proceed at our own risk with no promise that the grant on its merits would be approved. It would have to go through the full review process. The only one thing I'm asking is don't say we can't approve it because you already started. That's the only thing I'm asking.
Well, is there something in our rules?
Yeah, so currently under the guidelines, this is a reimbursement program and there's no notice to proceed until the grant agreement is signed and it's filed. The only thing that I would think would work, and Carmen's texting me too, so she may be texting. Go ahead and text if you need to, Carmen, who's apologizes for not being here. She's at home for the 2-week stay. I know. So the only way that we could do it is if what you wanted to match was not started. So in other words, so if you had a bigger project that was going to cost you $2.5 million and you were requesting 400 from us, which meant you would, have been provided 400. So if there's an $800,000 segment that could wait, I know the board is anxious to move forward, get this process started. So there's a likely chance if you're not going to start construction in 3 to 4 months, that if we go at the pace that I know you're hoping to, we're going to be starting this process August, September. So June, July, August, September.
And Joe, why couldn't you, or can you not? Surely the team could think of something like an additive alternate within the project that would be this last piece that is based on funding. And then, okay, it doesn't meet the criteria, whatever, right? It's still up to the owner whether or not to accept the additive alternate.
The problem is the way it's designed is you can't
separate it out.
One shot, because we're talking about footings and you're going to have these 24 courts built around this championship court and you can't not do it. It's got to all be done at the same time. So it is all basically going to be one project. I really can't say, well, let's not do this. We'll hold off until we potentially can get an approval. It's just all incorporated into, it's like building a house and not building the kitchen while you're at it. It's got to all get done at one time.
I have a quick question. So the event space that you were talking about as a multi-function use, would that be within the pickleball courts?
It's
Or
going to be
is
in
it
the
separate?
championship court area. It'll have seating for 12 to 1,500 people. Pickleball is really becoming a big thing. So they've already hosted 2 large tournaments. One was an international tournament, and in this new area, they want to do regular monthly local tournaments and 2 or 3 national tournaments a year.
So that's all going to be built out with the courts at the same time?
That's all going to be in there. And then when we're not doing tournaments, we want to be able to do local event performances, whether it's music or other types of, it could be an art show, anything like that will take place there.
And this is all undercover?
What I'm talking about is the championship court, and 4 other courts would be undercover, and where the performances would be under that cover.
And that's all
The
new?
other 20 courts would be open air. It's a good problem to have, but like I said, the cost of steel is going up 8% a month, and they want to lock into contracts.
I don't know what everybody's thinking, but I as much as we want to embrace Pictona and pickleball and all that, I don't see how this board can say anything today. It's not an agenda item. I understand exactly, and the rules are whatever the rules are today, maybe they change or whatnot. I mean, I don't, I get it, but I don't know that we can say anything today to
Well, you
give
really can. I'm
comfort.
not looking for you to take a vote on this. This is only my first appearance. I'll be back. doing this again.
Somehow I
But
believe that.
I don't see, I don't see much difference when somebody asks for an extension for several months, why I can't get a pre-request for several months. But that's not in the rules either. We're coming back and we're giving extensions, and I'm asking for you to do the opposite. Give me an advance. Give me the okay ahead of the project starting. It's going to get done. A lot of your projects are not getting done. This one will get done in a year.
We don't usually do prenups here, but
I
we
know,
might.
there's something good to say about a prenup, right?
Well, part of this could change if in fact the cycle was moved up, right?
Well,
I know, but
Cycle is months long.
understood.
We may start in August or September, but that's what the mandatory workshops.
Well,
yeah,
if in
By the time
fact
you
it
go
was,
through-
yeah,
it's May. Yeah.
Yeah, by the time you go through your
We're gonna,
approvals and the
we're gonna
county
try and
council
compress it because we know there's a lot of folks that have been on hold. So
right.
we are gonna try and compress it as tightly as we possibly can so that there can actually be a cycle that starts within this fiscal year. But I don't think that we would be done in time for his construction project. But I'm sure we can talk about it when we start talking about the rules and so forth.
Hey, I'm all about trying something one time, and if it doesn't work, don't ever do it again.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to be that test case.
Sure you are.
So, but thank you for your time. I know you can't make a decision today, but keep it in the back of your mind. I'll be back.
Well, thank you for the information, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak from the public? Okay, hearing none, we will now move into the advisory committee comments. Would like start on the end and move this way, Sarah?
I have no comments. Time is of the essence, so there you go.
Stacey? No comment.
None reference to this, what we just discussed. We're gonna move to the next afterwards. Okay, none.
Okay, well, with that, this will conclude the ECHO meeting. Meeting adjourned. Okay, so.
on? It's on now? Okay. Hello? So we promised. Hey. Okay, so we promised, or we tried to promise, hello, that the meeting would start at 1:30. If it weren't for Mr. Forte, we would have probably made it. Just kidding, Joe. So there's a small piece of action that the Forever Board Committee needs to take first. So Heather, if you would play that out.
For the record, Heather Wallace, Deputy County Attorney. One of your members has asked to participate virtually. So in order for that to occur, there needs to be a physical quorum present, which there is. And you must determine that their absence is due to extraordinary circumstances, such as a serious medical condition, illness, or physical disability. So you as a board must determine that before the member can participate virtually. You need to turn on your microphone. Sorry.
Back to that. I'm advised that Mr. LaMontagne is unable to attend for a medical reason. So I will entertain a motion to allow him to participate online.
I'm confused because I understood the same, that this wasn't required. This wasn't a required meeting. And so now it is?
It is a required meeting, yes. It's an official meeting of your.
Did we receive something saying it was official meeting? I'm asking.
It was noticed in the mail and you received an agenda. It is an agended meeting. We had to have a quorum present in order to hold the meeting. So
Okay.
Derek is able to, because of illness, if you all approve, participate online. That's the only question. So this way he won't have an absence.
So in our very, very first official committee meeting, it was not properly agended online. And we voted on officers at that meeting. Or, I guess our chair and our vice chair, and it was not official online, and we did not receive agendas until we got to the meeting. And I did not realize today was an official meeting. I'm just saying we were told that it wasn't. And I believe Derek was asking this last night, and I didn't hear an answer last night. I don't know.
I move we accept Derek LaMontagne's
Okay.
medical emergency.
I have a motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you.
Since you're holding the gavel, will you call the meeting to order, sir?
Okay. We will call the meeting to order for the Volusia Echo and Volusia Forever Advisory Committee Workshop on Thursday, May 13th, 2021.
Jill, will you call the roll, please?
Jag Pendergast,
Here.
Pat Northey, Jeffrey Alt, Sarah Lee Morrissey. Here. Pat Patterson. David Romeo. Reggie Santilli. Stacy Simmons.
Here.
Jack Surratt.
Here.
Go ahead.
Marianne Connors.
Here.
Steve Crump.
Here.
Gerald Pfizer.
He's absent.
John Gamble.
Absent.
Jessica Gow.
Here.
Derek LaMontagne. Derek, you need to unmute your mic. He's here. Derek Orberg.
Here.
Suzanne Schreiber.
Here.
Wanda Van Dam.
Here.
All right. So the Echo Board had asked if they could meet with you all. So here we are. I appreciate you all coming together for this discussion. I wanted to make an announcement first before we start with a few staff presentations. So Mr. Rechtenwald, our county manager, is putting forward in front of the county council on Tuesday, the 18th, a small reorganization. We are renaming a division and calling it Resource Stewardship. And that will include our Forever program, our ECHO program, our land management, and our extension offices. And the new, so at that meeting, the reorg will be presented. And then at the following meeting, June 1st, we will be presenting Brad Burbaugh, who's been attending all of these workshops as my assistant. Now will be named the Resource Stewardship Division Director and be presented for confirmation by the council on June 1st. So we think there's a lot of cool synergy that can happen, which is one of the reasons why we're excited about the workshop today. And with that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, or we'll get started on our presentations.
Don, I have a question.
Sure.
Could we get some sort of org chart to understand this organizational change?
When it's completed by the county manager, sure.
Good. Thank you. Trying to keep up with the
Sure. So it'll be a division director and then 4 separate groups underneath that division.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
In the past, I'm new here, Pat or somebody might recognize, have they met before and worked together, and how did that?
They have not?
They have not. Okay. And the reasoning was
The reasoning for,
not meeting before and looking
I
at?
have no idea.
Okay.
Well, part of it is that they didn't exist for many years.
Right. Well, they existed for around 10 years.
Yeah.
And I'm just
But
curious.
the last 10 years.
Right. I just, we're separate entities, I guess, separate boards, and I just, want to know if it was done in the past and what was accomplished, if anything, and, just to.
Yeah, perhaps Pat would know in the first 10 years if that happened. It may have.
Okay.
They did not meet previously. They were pretty singular, had singular purposes, but we're suggesting today that there's some opportunities for some synergies between the two. Excuse me, I apologize. All right, Tim Bailey.
Good afternoon. I'm Tim Bailey, Parks, Recreation, and Culture Director. Today before you, I wanted to showcase the Volusia County Trail System and give you a little background on where we're at, where we're heading, and also we'll talk a little bit about the Echo Trail set aside. So can everybody see that all right? Do we need to lower the lights at all or no? Or?
We have for now.
Okay, good. All right. So what you're looking at there is it's actually at our DeBerry Hall Trails Welcome Center. That takes up the whole wall. It's 20 feet by 10 feet tall. And there's an interactive panel in the center of that folks can gather information on everything trails, not just in Volusia County, but all those trails that you see on there. The blue, which is the coast to coast, the yellow, which is the heart of Florida, and the red, which is the St. Johns River to Sea Loop. And I'm going to cover the last 2 in greater detail later in the presentation. So let me give you a little background on the Sun Trail program. So Sun Trail has set aside, it actually stands for shared use non-motorized vehicles on a trail, right? And the state has approved the allocation of $25 million on average, fully funded by the new vehicle registration fees. And they asked the Office of Greenways and Trails to come up with a plan on how they want to allocate that $25 million. So the first project out of the gate was the Coast to Coast Trail, which was the blue trail that you saw in the previous slide. It's approximately 250 miles. It extends from St. Petersburg all the way over to Titusville. Because there was some projects in that Coast to Coast Trail that weren't ready, they decided to use another portion of those funds to award a second state trail system, which we went up to Tallahassee. We competed against other areas around the state, and St. John's was the lucky winner for the second priority trail selection. So that St. John's River to Sea Loop is 260 miles, and again I'll go into that. So Volusia County was kind of lucky, right? We got funding for the Coast to Coast Trail, and we got funding for the St. John's River to Sea Loop Trail. The final third on average goes to all the other trails within the state that are a part of the Office of Greenways Priority Trail Network. So what can Sun Trail pay for? So it can fund design and engineering, acquisition of right-of-way, trail construction. And on the Sun Trail program currently, There's no matching funds, so it's fully funded, and there's no sunset. So both of those two projects in Volusia County are fully funded until they're completed with no matching dollars. You are required to have a maintenance agreement with the FDOT. They won't build it unless you agree that you're going to maintain it. Okay. So what will Sun Trail not fund? So it will not fund restrooms. For instance, you build a parking lot next to the trail. It won't fund the parking lot or the restrooms. It won't fund wayfinding signage or trail maps or mile markers or water fountains, refillable water stations. And the last two are really important because those are big ticket items. So acquisition of right of way involving eminent domain. So when we're looking to connect gaps together, and if we do not have public right of way and we need to acquire it, and we do not have a willing seller, Sun Trail will not fund it. Not only will they not fund it, they won't construct the trail on any property that is funded with eminent domain. That's a big deal. So if we want to connect the gaps here in Volusia County, you got to be able to have a funding source to acquire the eminent domain right of way and then build the trail on that section of right of way that's acquired with eminent domain. That's a big deal. Okay, moving on. This is the coast to coast trail on all the gaps. You have it in your packet. You can't see it really good on the screen, but the big one for us in Volusia County is the gap between Guys Road and Gobbler's Lodge on Maytown Road in Osteen. So we've just finished that. We're having a ribbon cutting on the 20th, which is the Thursday of next week. That's the dignitaries from the state of Florida coming down. FDOT Secretary Tebow is going to be attending and speaking, as well as I believe the FDEP Secretary and then the District Secretary are all going to attend that ribbon cutting ceremony. So I would encourage you to attend. It's 10 o'clock on Thursday of next week. When you connect that gap, you'll be able to travel from Titusville all the way to the Orange County Trail. And then there's a small gap there. And then you'll be able to travel all the way to west of Winter Garden. When you connect all those pieces, the last little piece on the Orange County gap, once that's complete, is 125 miles. So then the last major piece on the coast to coast is right in the middle of the state. And I think that's 25 miles. And then the rest of the coast to coast is already constructed all the way down to St. Petersburg. So within a reasonable period of time, you'll be able to travel from Titusville to St. Petersburg on a trail. The next slide is the St. Johns River to Sea Loop. As I mentioned earlier, it's 260 miles. Volusia County has the largest portion of that. It's approximately 110 miles in Volusia County. We've got the cities on the east side of the county working directly with the Florida Department of Transportation on their alignment, and they will all connect north and south, eventually connecting up to St. Augustine, west to Palatka, down through DeLeon Springs, south to DeBary, east to Titusville, and it goes around the Merritt Wildlife Refuge and Titusville and Brevard County. So we've got a significant way to go in Volusia County on the St. Johns River to Sea Loop. We're up to 17 in DeLeon Springs, and then we have to go north of the Putnam County line. And then we're in Ormond by the Sea, and you have to go north of the Flagler County line, and all the cities have to sign up on their alignment. And then the other bigger piece is in the southeast, and that's going from Edgewater down into Brevard County. So this is our Volusia County Master Trail Program Showcase Trail System. I have 8 of these on every trailhead in Volusia County that is on the coast to coast. This was fully funded by a grant, or I should say it was a matching grant. And this, along with our wayfinding signs, which I'll show in a second, this will give users where they're at, how far they are from their next point of interest. And it shows the 3 different trail sections within Volusia County, which is the heart of Florida, the coast to coast, and the St. Johns River to Sea Loop. And all those trailheads are either parking or a park, and it indicates if there's a restroom or not by the color of the T, and that's important to some of the trail users. Okay, Volusia County Showcase Trail System mapping and branding. So that is what they look like on the trail. On the left, you see our Volusia County or Go Volusia by Trail, and on the right is a wayfinding sign, and those are scattered throughout the whole coast to coast trail. It tells you what the next 3 points of interest are in front of you, how far they are. If you're on a bike, how long it'll take you to travel to it. And if you're walking, it'll tell you how far you are from in walking distance. On the left border, it tells you what the acceptable activities are on the trail, and on the right, it's what's prohibited. Before I leave this topic, so we did brand the Coast to Coast Trail, and we worked together with the other 9 counties on the Coast to Coast Trail to come up with one unique sign. So when you're on the trail, no matter where you are, you know you're on the Coast to Coast Trail. So we're the first out of the gate. Volusia County's first out to get these signs in place. I have sent our FDOT documentation to all other 8 counties so they can use the same data, because we've already done the legwork on getting this approved through the Florida Department of Transportation. So all they would have to do is put in their sign locations, give it to their purchasing director, and then off they go to go and bid it. All right, moving on. The next section here is our mile markers. They're also on those mile markers. There is lat and long for safety purposes, as well as the U.S. National Grid. All these mile markers have been submitted to our emergency response teams. So if someone is in a health issue, they would just refer to that mile marker and they'll know exactly where they're at. And then the safety responders will know where the extraction point is to go and quickly help that individual on the trail. There's also the 911 number. There's also our 24-hour service number. If a tree falls down, we get contacted and we can go remove that tree. The Coast to Coast logo, as well as the St. John's River to Sea Loop logo, is on there. And our Parks and Trails app, which is on the right-hand side of that screen, is also promulgated, so folks can be encouraged to download that app. And that's a different discussion for another time. If anyone's interested in that, I'll spend some time talking to you about it. So the Echo Trail set aside, it's $1 million per year. It was approved by County Council in 2004. The set aside historically has funded portions of the Spring to Spring Trail, which goes from DeLeon Springs to Green Springs, portions of the East Central Regional Rail Trail, which goes from Green Springs East to Cow Creek, and then portions of the St. John's River to Sea Loop, which you've seen before. And the ECHO funds, we also leveraged these ECHO funds for matching federal and state dollars, which helped us significantly. There's a 20-mile section from Edgewater down to Brevard County and in the Maytown area, and then also at the Maytown Spur, that we used ECHO dollars to match the federal and state funding. That was over a $20 million project. So future trail construction needs. So right-of-way acquisition and development. So a good example of that would be from Lake Beersford north to Minnesota. The trail currently ends at Lake Beersford and then picks up again in Minnesota Avenue and DeLand. That's a gap. There will be eminent domain impacts. We do not have willing sellers. We do not have right-of-way. So we would need to acquire right-of-way and then build on that section with local dollars. Trail connections from the park and the beach. A good example of this is from the Marine Discovery Center, which we're looking to complete as we speak. And then going from the Marine Discovery Center over the bridge of the North Causeway, and then north to Sapphire, and then east to the beach. So you'll be able to get from the St. John's River to Sea Loop to the beach, as opposed to going to Brevard County and Titusville to get to the beach. You can do that right here in Volusia County by using that access point. And then the other point that's important to note is the resurfacing of the older trail segments. Sun Trail, I want to spend 30 seconds on this. So Sun Trail can fund resurfacing of trails. However, when they're looking to program in their 5 years out of that $25 million, they're looking to fund the gaps and not circling back and funding resurfacing projects. So we could put it in, just won't get funded. So that's why we're trying to find a way to resurface our trails here in Volusia County. A good example of that would be the Pat Northey Trail. It's from Lake Monroe to Gemini Springs. It's about 15 years old. It needs to be resurfacing. It's about a $400,000 project, of which we're using the historical ECHO set aside to fund. And that should be coming to completion in the next, say, 8 months or so. So the other future trail amenity needs, which would include restrooms, these would be, an example would be at Cow Creek in Edgewater, Gobbler's Lodge in Osteen, the Victor Trail in DeLand, the Maytown Spur also in Osteen, New Smyrna area, and then trail parking, which would be acquisition and development. Portland, which is in Deltona, would be a need. Spring Garden, which is up in DeLeon Springs, is also a need, and Guys Road. Interpretive educational panels along the trail, bike repair stations, refillable water stations, trail counters, although we have one up at Cow Creek, working in partnership with the state on that particular trail counter, security cameras, and then covered pavilions and benches. So with that, I would entertain questions.
Sorry, 2 questions for you. The mile markers, how frequently are those getting placed? And then security cameras, what are we talking about there?
Okay, so whenever we build like a new trail, you know, we get a lot of folks that are in their pickup trucks and they want to drive on a trail, or their ATVs or their mini bikes just to check it out, right? So we try to catch that perpetrator with a camera and get their license plate and then supply it to the sheriff's office. So they get noticed that, hey, we're watching and you're not supposed to be on a trail with your pickup truck.
So how frequently are we putting up cameras? Like what kind of, that's another thing to maintain, another, you know, that's where I'm going with that.
You're right. And it's a way that we try to police this without having staff. You know, we have staff to maintain trails, right? But 61 miles of trails, you can't be everywhere all the time and you're not there 24 hours a day.
Got it.
So the camera is the way we handle that. And as for the mile markers, I have that funded via grant. It's through the TPO. Every mile marker that you see up there was funded with a TPO
Yeah, but is it
grant.
every mile or every
It's
other
every
mile?
half mile, every half mile.
Every half.
Every half mile, right.
Yeah, I had a question. What's the trail counter?
Trail counters, okay, yeah. So a lot of folks ask, especially for entrepreneurs or businesses, when they're looking to maybe add a bike shop or something, they're looking for how many people travel on a trail. And are they bicyclists? Are they joggers? What's their age? You know, all those kinds of details that they use to help them make decisions on, hey, how busy are these trails? Does it make sense for me to throw money into the economy over here? A good spot would be DeBerry, because you got 3 trail sections all crossing right there in southwest Volusia County. I think they have a great opportunity to build economic development. Having trail counters there helps the entrepreneur know, hey, what kind of traffic am I going to expect if I build this?
So is that the individuals do a survey at a location?
Well, there's multiple ways to do it. We have done it, feet on the ground, and got trail data. It's costly. Having the electronic trail counters, which are solar, and there are also Wi-Fi, or they send a signal. So right from my desktop, I can see how many people were on that section of trail. Were they riding a bike? Were they jogging? Or were they walking? I can't tell you if they're male or female, and I can't tell you what their age is using the electronics.
So this is just like a camera view of who's going by, or
It's
they're
not
actually putting information in?
Well, no, it's counting them as they go by. And it's not a camera, it's a signal. So when they cross, it pings, yeah, I got to count. How fast was that person going? Now they know it's a bike. If you follow me, that's how they trigger that data. It's not a camera, it's a ping system.
And is there security cameras at specific designated spots, or are they area wide?
Well, we don't tell anybody where we're putting our cameras. What we do is we identify an area that we have high criminal or high, vehicles on a trail, and then we'll strategically locate a camera there in an area where we're trying to catch a license plate. And so we don't technically, it's a surveillance camera. I don't really broadcast where we put them in, that kind of thing.
So you're looking for funding for these 2 types of observations, is that right?
Well, I do need funding, although, I'm not sure that would be ECHO. That particular piece would probably not be ECHO eligible. But I will be seeking grants. A TPO would be a good example of that. Right. Oh, sorry.
question, and this came up in a completely different context, but I had some people that I was working with ask about kind of an urban trail network in East Volusia. And I'm thinking, these long stretches of roads along Williamson, roads like that where we have right of way. Is there any contemplation of that trail network ever being developed?
So I can't use Sun Trail monies for it. It would have to be local monies. An Echo Trail set aside would be eligible. I just couldn't use Sun Trail for it. Sun Trail goes.
Understood. I was thinking more in terms of if Sun Trail is picking up some more in Volusia, that perhaps.
100% can do that with an Echo. It's local monies is what you're looking at there.
Right.
Okay.
I had a quick question. I
Yeah.
see that you have a trailhead at the Sunrail station in DeBerry. Any thought about the DeLand station that's coming? Trailhead at spur line out?
Well, yeah, we are looking at that. And once it gets there, we'll look at connectivity. But yeah, that's another great spot. And that's the sign that you see up there was funded from the city of DeBerry in partnership with the St. Johns River to Sea Loop Alliance. It's good. It's a good, education to a citizen getting off the train, coming into the city of DeBerry and telling them what's available to them. And they're building their TOD right next to that Sunrail station.
I've been in other cities and people from Orlando are liable to bring their bicycle up to ride.
We hope that's exactly the point.
I've seen it in many other cities where they'll do that. They'll travel to somewhere. To ride.
Yeah, I was talking to Mr. Alt. Winter Garden is a great example of a success story of what a trail can do to a community. Years ago, before that trail was even in place, the stores were empty, storefronts were empty. The town was dying, was deteriorated. They hired or they organized organized a volunteer group and they said, hey, listen, we need some recommendations on this trail. That group said, hey, we need to keep it out of downtown Winter Garden, right? They didn't like that answer. They fired the group. They brought another group in. That group said, bring it right through the center of town. And that's what they did. And that town has changed because of it.
I saw the same thing in a little town of Travelers Rest, north of Greenville, South Carolina. It was a dead, dying cotton mill town. They put a trail through the middle of it, and now it's back alive again.
100%.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so, I'm going to expand a little bit. So trails just bring in economic development to communities. And not only that, there's other benefits. If you look at what property values do within 1,000 feet of a trail, it increases, people want to live there. So when they are looking to buy a house, one of the things you'll see in their marketing is right next to the trail, right? The area in DeBerry, half the people that have called me and said, hey, when are you going to connect up to the trail? And the developer is actually creating a trail from their community right to the showcase trail system because they moved there for that trail, right? So property values go up. When you look at that incremental difference, let's say 4 or 5%, and that's conservative, you multiply that by the millage rate after you divide it by 1,000, that's the new income you get. And I did the exercise just for Volusia County using our own property tax appraiser data. It's over $1 million that the trails bring into Volusia County. Cost me $275,000 to maintain. It's a winner. That makes sense to everybody? I know I covered that fast, but okay.
Do you have plans on this, like this trail system, the map? You're telling us where, restrooms are, trailheads, et cetera. I did some biking at a trail where there was multiple hotels that were on the trail, and we biked for 3-4 days and stayed at hotels. We're talking about economic development. And then I think Marianne spoke about maybe infill, where you're taking it from, city of Daytona Beach in the middle and moving, the traffic of a bike that can get on the trail there and going out to these locations. Is that, I think you said, it could be used for echo funds, could be used for that.
Yeah, so yes, county parks connecting to the trail backbone, a great example of that. Another example of that would be the city parks wanting to connect to the backbone trail system, which they're doing, but that's their local monies, not the Echo set aside. Those are the county project, right? But everybody's tying into them. City of Deltona is really, I mean, if you get on their website, it's all trails, all eco tourism is a big deal with them. They're trying to connect to Sanford. That trail section has been completed out in Sanford. You're going to see a lot of different things come up in Southwest Volusia County and tying into Sanford. Volusia County is also going to partner with Seminole County on half marathons and marathons. So there's just a lot of momentum around trails and synergy and partnerships going on right now.
But also IDing places to stay for families to go. Is that
through time? I think businesses will pop up next to trails for the exact point that you're bringing up. Right?
Okay. But is it advertised anywhere now or no? Because I know
You mean
probably in DeLand and Deltona, there's some hotels along the main road right there. Is there any advertising of, hey, stay here, or bed and breakfast? Is there anything like that?
I have snippets of that tying into the 3 TDC. So when you go to our Trails Welcome Center in DeBerry Hall, that interactive panel ties into all of the TDCs, in Volusia County, that ties into all the hotels and all the restaurants. So you walk in there, you say, I'm interested in traveling from here to there. Where can I stay? Where can I eat? So you can plan your trip right from there. But I'm linking to the tourist development centers that track all that information and have relationships with the hotels and restaurants and that kind of stuff.
And another reason why I asked is I went to Blue Springs and I have a little camper. We stayed there, but there really wasn't any, hey, you can eat at this restaurant if you go up here and go this way. Or
you mean at the state park itself, right?
Well, at the state park, but also when I was on the trail, it just gave me mile markers. It didn't even coming back, it wouldn't say, there's a campground or Blue Springs.
So that is the St. John's River to Sea Loop, right? And so you saw the wayfinding signs on the maps that I showed you. That was for the coast to coast. I have a $500,000 grant from the TPO to do the same wayfinding signs on the St. John's. However, we're not far enough along for me to bid that out and build them all. So I'm waiting a couple of years and then putting those wayfinding signs, putting those maps along the whole St. John's River to Sea Loop in Volusia County.
Great.
Tim.
And in the cities,
So I think what Mr. Romeo is talking about is probably a higher level than what your wayfinding is. And maybe that will start to percolate in your mind when we talk about some synergies. We do think that is important. We're just not there yet, but we've got 20 years to do some cool things.
There's a lot more to be done in the marketing side.
I agree. And I think, I would have never did the trail along the Erie Canal if I didn't realize, because I wasn't in the greatest shape, but there wasn't a hotel 10 miles down the road, so, or a bar. No. I would have never done that if I didn't know there was a plan already in place, knowing that there's hotels that we could stay at, we could eat at.
So before I leave that topic, if you download the Volusia County Parks and Trails app, it's free. It's at Google Play in the App Store. When you're on the trail, you'll see where you're on the trail, and as you move, the map will move with you. And there's a little icon. It says "Near Me." If you click on that icon, it'll give you the 25 nearest assets that are near you, and then you could map it, and then it'll take you right there. So, but doesn't include restaurants. Just includes parks and libraries and other stuff, but not private restaurants and hotels. You can click to the TDCs from that to get that information, but it's a couple of clicks away.
Tim, I have a question for you. There's lots of gaps. There's gaps in the system. Has anyone calculated exactly how much money you need to fill in these gaps?
So ranges, well.
And I realize it comes from different sources.
Right.
But what is the goal to actually just complete the gaps?
Right. So I can help you with that. At least I'll give you a big overview, because when you get down into it, there might be bridges, there might be wetlands, so those numbers could change. So on average, trail construction is about $500,000 per mile. Bridges like over 415 or over 472 are approximately $2 million. Might be higher now with steel and stuff like that. But those are just benchmarks that gives you an idea of what it costs to build a trail. So if you're looking at what we got left, you're looking at somewhere between $50 and $100 million to build out the rest of the trail section.
And that's just for what you have on the books now.
That's right.
That's not even discussing going into future trails like Marianne mentioned
right.
as far as
That's
urban.
right. Just building the showcase trail system that we're talking about.
And it was how much was it?
Between 50 and $100 million.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a big number. Yeah, it's a big number. Yeah, yeah. So Don is saying largely Sun Trail money. Yes, except if it's eminent domain, then we got to fund it. Right. Yeah, we got lucky when we got Sun Trail.
Or are you gonna, yeah, what's the chances of getting that 50 or 100 million that you need to fill in the gaps from Suntrail?
100%, except
100%.
100%, because it's fully funded till completion, but the eminent domain is not eligible. The construction on the eminent domain is not eligible. So just the section from Lake Beersford to Minnesota is going to be millions of dollars for local funding to build that gap, just that one gap, and it's 3 miles.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the local dollars come in. The $1 million set aside. Right.
Yeah, but that's what I was saying. Is the $1 million set aside large enough?
I don't know the answer to that till we get farther down the road. I really don't. And when we identify willing sellers, then I could say, you know, that this is how much we're going to need. All I can tell you right now is what I know, and I know I need money from Lake Beersford north to Minnesota because I know I don't have willing sellers. What else? Anything else? Okay, thank you.
You've come a long way from being a bean counter, Tim.
Wait, what? Oh, right.
Tim, like me, started in the county back in the dark ages. We're months apart from our retirement, when our proposed retirement dates are. So I think I have a few months on you, right?
That's right.
Yeah. All right. So I hope that interested you. I realize, Forever Board, that the trails aren't yours to deal with directly, but we want to talk about some neat synergies that are potential. And again, Echo, you and Forever, you may not actually be making decisions together, but I think there's just some excitement that can come from having this discussion. So I'm glad that you asked for it, Sarah Lee. All right, so here is a map, and I'm glad that you all have smaller versions of this so you can see more clearly of all of our county preserve areas. So it's approximately 37,000 acres, and they're all over the county. Biggest line share is in the conservation corridor, but we manage all of these lands. Some are fully funded by the county and some are partially funded. The difference between a preserve and a park is active versus passive. So the preserve has passive recreation allowed on it. So synergy, just a cute little buzz here. The cooperative working together of 2 or more people or organizations when their combined effort is greater than the sum of their individual efforts. So background. Passive recreation uses are allowed on county preserves. They're dependent upon the management plan. So there is a management plan for every site that we own and manage. It must be compatible for that site. So not everything is allowed at every site, but the things that we can allow include hiking, biking, horseback riding, primitive camping, and kayaking. Who's been on our forever lands? Anybody? Oh. I'm not a horseback riding, primitive camping kind of person, but in the right weather, I can be a hiking and kayaking person on these types of lands. Mosquitoes love me, and if they're 5 miles away, they will come and bite me. It's proven fact. You can ask Nick, who manages and Ginger. They've seen it happen. But one of the things that I think we've heard a lot of comments on outside of the listening sessions, but have been coming to us for years, is we don't have enough access, or we don't really know about these things. 2 of my son's best friends have sciencey type backgrounds, and they recently got a chance to shadow Nick for a day and see what he does on our property. So they were really excited, had no idea They're 20 years old, both born in Volusia County, had no idea about these properties. So that really got me to thinking that we really don't do a good job of showing off what we do and allowing people to come on the property and learn. The way I've learned about the properties is through Nick. He's given me tons of tours on the property and go, oh, that's really interesting that if you cut back this underbrush here or plant different kinds of trees, then certain birds start coming back. And that's kind of interesting to me, even though I'm not really a greenie, want to go out and be bitten by mosquitoes kind of person. That's interesting. And I think there are people like me and different other age groups, younger like my kids, or older than me, who would really enjoy an opportunity on these properties if they knew what they could learn. So we really want to do a better job of providing kiosks and signage, trail markers. I love the trail markers that are on our hard trails, but we have tons of trails in our forever properties. Why shouldn't they correspond, be similar, so that if you're wanting a multi-park or multi-facility experience, that you could find some similarities and feel more comfortable. We already have eco buggy tours. Those are very popular. People get on, they get to ride through the park, and they have someone that's knowledgeable there sharing what is available. So you have a screen chart. We handed out to you earlier. And I wanted you all to have a feel for the types of things that currently exist on our properties. So they're all listed here with the number of acres. And then all those things that I kind of read off to you earlier, plus a few more, are listed here. And we've gone through all of the management plans and talked and checked the boxes for what is allowed on that property. Okay. And then we provided you some current notes on activities and things that happen on those properties. And they're all over the place. They're kind of cool. We have some specialty hunts, which, you know, like for veterans, they'll have a one-day hunt and you register and you get to go out and you hunt and nobody else is allowed on the property during that day. They do all kinds of neat things like that. They have kids hunts, miles of multi-use trails. They have paddling trails for kayaks and fishing, multi-use trails, mountain biking trail, a lot of trails. They have some educational kiosks, and the list goes on. So I want to talk about some experience enhancements that could happen. I think one of the things that's missing from some of the forever properties is to be able to provide an experience. And to me, an experience includes education and accessibility to see things that you would not normally see. You can walk, you don't have to stay on a trail when you go to forever property. It's recommended so you don't get lost and we don't have to come find you, but you don't have to. But we think that there's some ways that we could improve it. Now, I'm not gonna remember what this is called. What is this called, Nick? The first one on the left? Chicky. Well, he's saying it fancy, Chicky Hut. But anyway, it's from the Seminole Indians, right? So we'd like to kind of recreate in some ways some history of the property, as well as just the natural and ecological benefits that are provided on the conservation lands. There's an observation tower. There's a different type of trail that's raised, so it could go over some areas so we don't hurt the greenness of the property. And then here's some other things. So that's a yurt, a Florida yurt. Still not going to get me camping in one of those because it does not have an air conditioner, and I don't believe it has a fan even either. So, but you know, refillable water stations, look how cool that one is up there. If you have your dog can drink at the bottom. There's actually a station for you to lean over and drink like we always did. And then there's a refillable water. Now that's not always easy because we have to have access to potable water to make that happen. But where we did have access, we should try and make the best of it and provide those kinds of amenities for folks. That's a kayak launch down there, I believe. There's some signage. And then at the top right, this is the one that really I get excited about. So who owns a kayak and likes to kayak? Anybody? So I don't own a kayak, but I like to kayak and I don't want to have to cart it somewhere. So for me, this is really cool. This is a no person involved kayak rental station, and you sign up in advance, you rent your kayak, you go, it's it's electrified, if you will, by solar power. I go, I punch my little code in, my locker door opens, I get my equipment out that I need for my kayak, I get my kayak, and I put my personal things, and away I go.
I think that's so cool. You don't have to have a kayak to go enjoy our properties and really have a great experience. And we can put this out to bid and we don't have to man it, and we're kind of good to go. So creative things that we're going to work on. Here's a whole bunch of different kind of educational and signage components that we'd like to see added, but we want to make sure that we have kind of a continuum. One of the things that I think would be neat, and I think both Ms. Northey and Ms. Connors have told me at varying times, we would like to have QR codes. So on properties where it's appropriate, you could drive up, hit the QR code on the sign, and it would tell you everything that you're seeing. I mean, I just think that's really cool because you don't have to keep a sign in one place either. What happens if we recreate habitat that's supposed to be in that place? We could point out all the different layers of that habitat growth and, hey, look around, you might see the little bird that's coming back to life in this area. So more educational enhancements through the properties. Now, so this is why I wanted Tim to present to all of you beforehand. So, and I gotta have my notes. This is connecting regular parks with forever preserved. Tim, why don't you come to the little. Okay, so I can't anything. Lake Monroe is on the far left with the big green star right there. So there you could rent a canoe or kayak and paddle or approximately 7 miles up to Gemini Springs. So, right, yep. So we'd paddle in our canoe or kayak, and then you could rent a bike. We could use the same type of vendor situation, but for bikes, and pedal approximately 15 miles to the Hickory Bluff Preserve. Now, Tim suggested that then I could go backwards, and I said, no, I'd be Ubering from there. That might be a little far for me, but I think it's a great concept. What if we also had a trail that, which it does, goes to Lake Monroe? You can come over the bridge from Seminole County, land over there by Lake Monroe, get your kayak, go to Gemini. You can walk the trails at Gemini too, and then ride your bike over to Hickory Bluff and take a educational fun tour at Hickory Bluff. I think that's the type of synergy that we want you to get excited about. So this may take some investment from ECHO into Forever Properties so that we can really create this awesome synergy countywide of all these neat assets. We already have a really good storybook for all the ECHO projects that have been funded over the years. We want to create a similar type of situation for all the Forever Properties so they can see all the neat assets and maybe figure out where they want to go. We're going to be doing some website things and some app things too, but I just wanted you all to talk about it a little bit, see what you're interested in, and see if this is something that you collectively think is a good idea. I don't know that any rule changes have to take place, but I just think that when you're talking to the council, it would be nice if you said, hey, we think this is really cool, that we could really be working together to make sure that the citizens and the visitors to our community are getting a great experience when they come on our properties or when they go to, and the other thing we could do is we could hook up where other ECHO things that we have funded, how they could have access along the way. So a lot of what you were talking about, David, you were talking more specifically about kayaking or riding a bike, but you know, thinking really outside of the box about how we connect all these neat things so people can have out of the world, amazing Volusia County experiences. Great. And then, so here's the summary. The other end. Sit down now so I can read and hold this document all at one time. So we brainstormed, and granted, you guys might not like these ideas, and that's fine. We just wanted to share some ideas that we had about Forever Properties. So we'd like to expand the specialty hunts. That's not something that would be ECHO funded, but it's a really neat concept. I talked about the QR code-based interpretive panels. I think a lot of folks would really enjoy that, and it would require, either way, we're going to have to create scripts, but we might not have to create as many informative panels in writing as we were once planning to do. We were asked to consider on the hard echo trails. So I'm naming them black, green, and blue trails. So black being our hard trails, our showcase trails, green being the forever trails on our forever properties, and blue being the waterway. So I think that there's a lot of amenities, and you heard Tim talking about some of them, but covered benches. I mean, if you're going on a long trail stretch and it's hot, you might want to take a little break and drink some water and be able to sit under a bench that has some covering, whether it's shade from trees or shade from a maybe small little covering. Again, the unattended kayak or canoe or biking kiosks. A learning center at some point. I think we would probably not want a physical learning center so that we with a building, because that would cost a lot of money, A, to build and then staff and maintain. But maybe we could create these outdoor learning centers that provided the same kind of information but did not require staffing. And I think you'll see fishing docks. There's a whole bunch of different things that could be done, but we just wanted to throw some of these ideas out there for you to consider and talk about. And if you had questions or we could do anything to help you in your discussions, we'd be happy to.
I have a question. Looking over this listing, it looks like some of this is facilities and some of these are programs or experiences. So they kind of have a natural divide. In terms of forever properties, is there any limitation right now? And is it a legal limitation or is it just by past practice? In terms of what improvements, because that's the term in the Volusia Forever resolution, what improvements can be done with the forever money so that if some of these are physical improvements like trails, like benches or coverings, can that be done now with forever funding?
Not with forever funding. It is purely acquisition, which is why we wanted the two of you all two boards to sit down and talk.
So what has been done through?
It's been done through labor. So for example, in creating a trail, the land management staff goes out and creates a trail. They do create signage. I wouldn't say there's a plethora of educational signage. It's minimal.
So that's general funding.
Yes.
Has been funding that. I just wanted to.
I mean, we've done a few things in terms of the maintenance. Like if we're putting in trail markers, that's an acceptable expense. But when we get to some of this other things, it's not necessarily.
So it would be like a grant from the county for a park.
Sure.
That ECHO would be funded.
Yeah. Right. So Parks and Recreation and Culture, even though land management is coming under the new division, would apply. They would work with land management to implement, and then it would become land management's responsibility to maintain at those facilities.
I think it's a good idea. It will bring more people, it'll educate them, it's going to create more ecotourism, which is going to help economic development. I know the river walk that Sanford put in, it was a $40 million project. It's awesome and people are on it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's a good thing. So let me have some clarity. Sorry. So this would be under direct county expenditures?
No, sir, we would most likely we would be bringing a match.
We meaning the county.
We being the county. Parks, Recreation and Culture would apply for the grant. So if we did not have a match for some reason and we wanted to request it that way, we try not to. We don't want to be seen as any different than any other organization applying. But if for some reason there was a big push to do something, then we could do a direct county expenditure, but that wouldn't be our recommendation. But either way, it would come through this board.
Understood. How does this correlate with state parks? Like are state parks part of the corridors or are they associated anyway? Are we working independent of the state park system?
The state park system or the state-owned conservation lands?
I don't know.
Okay. So state parks, we don't generally partner with too very much. But on the state conservation lands,
we actually had a meeting recently with St. John's. They don't do very much in the way of even passive recreation on their properties, but we discussed where we're jointly owning properties, possibly having some programming that maybe, we would be active in doing. They're like, if you're willing to take it on, we can work up an agreement, work on it, but Ginger might be able to answer that better.
So Forever has partnered with state partners multiple times, and it depends on who the partner is, sort of how the ownership pattern turns out. So the state, when you think of the state as like the DEP, the trustees, they don't share ownership. So even though we'll partner in an acquisition, the county doesn't maintain any ownership of that. An example would be Lighthouse Point Park in Ponce Inlet, where the county did participate in the purchase of that. The state has sole ownership. We operate that park and the Marine Science Center under a lease agreement with the state. So we lease the property that we help buy, right?
I see.
So, so there are lots of nuances, but so if we purchase something with the state and the state manages it, we really don't have any input in the recreational uses. When we partner with the water management district, some of those partnerships they manage, some we manage, but the water management district properties are much like our Forever properties, where it's passive recreation, typically trails, some of them offer hunting opportunities and those sorts of things. But there aren't a lot of physical amenities. It's mostly really passive.
Yeah, it sounds complicated. What I was thinking is in terms of the various experiences we're trying to do, it seems state parks would be a nice complement to all this that we're doing, whether it be conservation land or whatever it may be. But I understand, and it sounds like trouble to me. When I hear this, I think they're terrific ideas. I really do, and I think there's a lot to be done there. But a lot of this comes back to the marketing of these things. Like these are great ideas that could be the greatest secret that we keep because we really don't have a way to promote it very well, and you end up with really. I'd be interested in accounts for the bicycles and walkers and all that, because as a Volusia County resident forever. A lot of these things just aren't known, and it's just like Forever isn't known, or Echo isn't known. But certainly when we get to these trail systems and the specifics of these experiences, I think the common person has no idea, and certainly the tourists who come here, which is one of the greatest benefits we have, would have to be explained that. I think that if we get into a synergistic position where we're really building out some of these ideas, I think we need to have a marketing plan associated with that to get the job done, because otherwise I think we're doing great things, but we're keeping it quiet.
We totally agree. We approve the budgets every year of the 3 TDCs, I just forgot, tourist development. And so the council regularly makes requests of them to advertise in ways that bring people to understand our amenities. And the West Volusia Tourism Advertising Authority has done a fabulous job of doing that under Georgia's leadership. And so I think that's something that I absolutely agree we need a marketing plan, and we plan on doing some of those things in-house. And then also potentially later on, as we start developing programming and so forth to a higher level, making sure that we reach out beyond our own community to draw folks in.
All right. Thank you.
So Donna, I'm trying to think of how this affects what this committee is looking at. Is there a thought that properties that lend themselves to public use and experience, would that be part of a desirability in terms of ranking? If a property was to offer something in terms of, I don't know, connectivity, not just of the ecosystems, but also of use systems, is that part of this thought? Because
it could be. We're just trying to kind of throw it out for you guys.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think through. I mean, a lot of this comes after this group is out of the picture.
Absolutely.
So I'm trying to think, what's this got to do with what we do? And so that's where I'm thinking, is that part of looking at a property for its value in terms of
Connection.
of a public experience or.
And Marianne,
use.
if I can add, 'cause
Sure.
that was my thought too,
Mhm.
is of course we'd love to have ECHO do anything on all of our existing
Right.
forever property. What this body does really is selecting what we buy next. And so, the ranking of criteria and things like that, one thing that I think is probably an easy sell to me, for discussion, is we have these two lists, right? So we have our priority A list that the county is just authorized to go out and negotiate. And then we have priority B list, which says the property has some value, but it's not the most important to us right now. So we're not targeting it for acquisition. And so what I could see us doing is saying, we have our priority B list, but if any of those properties had an active ECHO project on them, they could be bumped to the A list. So we could pursue purchase faster. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, right now the criteria are very, it's very heavily weighted in terms of protections and ecosystems, and I get that. But the resolution does speak to other purposes, and so I'm wondering how the ranking of properties accommodates some other purposes, and I don't know if it's a ranking or it's a allocation of funding, but there are other ways of reflecting multiple purposes. And I'm just trying to think of how to bring some of the advantages of all the ECHO projects into how this group would be looking at properties.
So Donna, these projects that you're talking about now with the synergy, so this is is it 9 or 11 existing projects or properties that have been
These
under-
are our properties that we already own and currently manage through land management.
So in the 20 years, these are the total projects that had, I'm sorry that I didn't come to the listening session last night and Warren didn't learn much about Forever, but if you could just elaborate on Forever and their properties.
So these properties are actually not just acquired with Forever funds. This goes back to 1986, right? Before that, Ginger could probably talk to it a little bit better, but so these are properties that we currently manage. We might have bought them completely by ourselves. We might have partnered to buy them, but these are the ones that we're responsible. So in some cases, like Ginger was talking about, where we might have partnered for land to be purchased, doesn't mean that we own it now or that we manage it now. So there are other properties that were purchased through the various land acquisition processes that are beyond this list.
This is an opportunity on these particular properties for what we discussed earlier.
Yes, and
Okay.
future properties too.
One thing I would like to suggest, I'm sorry I didn't make the listening session last night in Ormond as well. They had a couple kids graduating here shortly, but one thing I would recommend, and I know we do it here in ECHO by just looking at the funding, is that when we fund something, there is money in there for like management of the system, of the whole project for the person that we're matching with. Is that correct? Like a certain percent to make sure that, the system, that everything gets done.
So I would say that cities automatically budget for those types of things. It's one of the things that nonprofits were talking about.
Yeah, Chad was talking about how
is
difficult it is.
Request that something like that, which
Okay.
seems completely reasonable to us, but it's not currently an eligible expense. It could
Okay.
be.
Okay, but could be. Okay. So like on future properties, I would just like to make a suggestion that maybe allocate so much money just to get it up to signage, to get to make sure that, if there is an area where you want to put a, whatever hut that was, I think that would be very valuable, and then turn it over to the parks. But having some extra funds in there to get the signage, to get, up to par where you want it to be, so we can all enjoy it. I don't know if that's something that would be a good suggestion or not.
And I think the question is, so we have a land management set aside. We build in when we purchase property. The question is, what can be spent out of that for these purposes, and what could we partner with ECHO with to bridge the gap? And so it seems like basic mile markers and clearing and things like that we could probably do. The enhanced amenities, I think, falls outside of our mandate.
Correct.
Okay, understood.
Yeah.
And these are, to me, these are great projects for us to get on. I mean, it's like low hanging fruit to really spruce it up for all the public to enjoy, you know. It's our quality of life. We want a drinking water fountain out there. We want benches. We want, you know, lean tools or whatever, you know, for protection. But I think I would encourage the Parks Department to look into that and apply and that.
I'm just curious, is this something that's been discussed with any of our potential partners, speaking from the Forever side, like St. John? Is their primary goal seems to be the protection of the land, the set aside of the land. And if we're going to start thinking along these lines, which I'm not at all opposed to, but I'm just thinking how it's going to potentially impact what their thought process is in partnering with us.
And I actually asked the question when we were talking about the Palm Bluff property recently with St. John's Water Management staff. I asked because, you know, we're partnering there. We'd like to know what our ability is to maybe increase the public access there. And our goal is still the same too. It is to preserve and conserve this property. But there are people that would like to go out and see it. And so how can we do that in the most responsible way and have it be part of the management plan? But they are tentatively interested in a conversation. So that excited me. And so we'll probably go and sit down with Ramesh, who you heard from before, and just have a conversation about what they might be interested in on properties that we potentially co-own, if you will.
Because the educational part of it, I think, is fantastic. And that's something that can be very passive just on trails and so on, because not to make a generalization, but kids nowadays don't seem to get outside all that much and don't understand a lot of these. Like I'm looking at this one, I think it was the ponds. Ponds are good for wildlife, that type of thing. This would be a good way for them to learn this stuff. My thought is just the balance between protection and access.
Absolutely. And we don't want to do anything that's really going to in any way damage. So like we wouldn't have people dragging kayaks far distances. It'd be right close to wherever there was a kayak entry point or bikes. People can bike on the trails themselves that we've already established. It's when they veer off and try to make their own trails, it's problematic, but.
I'd say I just had a follow-up question. For background, Forever has two types of ownership that we, you know, pursue. So we have things that we own outright, and then we have conservation easements. And if we're buying or purchasing a conservation easement, it has to meet less of the criteria that we have established, is how it's currently set up. And so the question, I don't know if Ginger County Legal, when we have the conservation easements in place, do we or can we draft them to be more broad in what recreational activities they allow on conservation easement land?
So the easements are unique, right? So each landowner in the county would negotiate that easement. And certainly landowners that are willing to have access to their properties, we can negotiate that into the contract. Typically, a landowner that sells us a conservation easement is still doing some activity there. Maybe it's farming, maybe it's their homestead, and they're not particularly interested in inviting the public onto their property. The good news in that relationship is that we pay significantly less for the property if it's just a conservation easement. And, you know, folks that are still farming or whatever, you know, maybe it's a cattle ranch, they really can't have, you know, folks just traipsing through. So we don't typically have, or we don't currently have conservation easements that allow for that kind of public access. It's not prohibited. It's just a matter of what is that contract between us and that property owner.
I'm saying, I know that conservation easements I've seen normally grant that right kind of to the underlying property owner in certain situations where they can have a trail or something. And so it's just something that we could potentially look at if they're open to it.
Mm-hmm.
Donna, I don't know, looking through this list, if these would be allowed or not, but fishing line collectors, on properties that have fishing, and any area that has dogs allowed, like the doggy bag the dog pickup bags.
Absolutely. I don't see any
So
reason
I
why
didn't
that
see
would
them
be
on this
prohibited.
list, so I'm just kind of adding that.
Sure, good idea.
We do try to put those monofilament recycling bins at any public area where people are fishing. We try to have people volunteer to keep them up, empty them and that sort of thing. But anytime that we have a new fishing area or any place that people have access to water, we try to install those mono bins.
I got something real quick. Donna and Ginger, Tim, every one of the Michael Ploys came in and at our listening session spoke about the opportunities that Volusia Forever may be missing, not buying land for conservation in an urban area, a smaller parcel. That would be something that if Volusia Forever was to do, that may be a very good place to put an eco project for recreation. On a portion of it, not all of it, obviously. But that's just something that popped in my mind.
Are you referring to passive recreation like trails?
No, I'm thinking playgrounds. I'm thinking something that people can use. I mean, something fun.
That's not. Currently, it's prohibited on
Well,
forever
then
purchased property.
could we address that at some point and change that rule?
Sure,
That's all right.
but that might also be something that you could partner with Echo. So if.
That's what yes.
So my point being is if you're buying one portion and it's for conservation,
Mhm.
then Echo would have to do something over here because we.
Maybe next door,
Right.
adjoining it. Mhm. Or the city together.
Right.
Mhm. Very good.
And one thing to consider too on those smaller urban parcels, I think that what would be helpful is that city or local government partnership or other partnership, could be a nonprofit, because those properties are extremely hard to manage from an ecological perspective, right? We had a little bit of that conversation. It's hard to put prescribed fire on a 5-acre parcel. It's hard to do those management techniques to manage for the habitat, which has been the focus of Forever, on smaller disconnected parcels. So having a partner that can do that type of management on a smaller scale would certainly make them more attractive in terms of long-term management of those properties.
You know, I wasn't thinking so much on the ecological benefit on the small parcel as I would water recharge or
Right.
something along that benefit area.
I have another kind of mechanical question. Who would you envision spearheads this effort, okay, to try to look at these amenities and these experiences, if you will, within the county system?
The Resource Stewardship Division.
We
just get
I see.
under Mr. Burbaugh's leadership.
Okay, good. And
We've already started brainstorming it.
good. And so in effect, they would prioritize and apply to Echo for these kinds of activities within Forever Land.
So for complete transparency, we would have Parks, Recreation, and Culture apply for the grant
Okay,
and manage it with us. And then if it was on a Forever property, if that's what you're referring to, if there's an Echo.
yes, I am.
Echo paid for amenity on a Forever property, we don't want to apply to ourselves. I
Right,
feel that's kind of squeaky there. I
right.
don't like it. So Mr. Bailey's division would submit the grant and manage its development, if you would.
And then maintain it,
Okay,
And then
which
we,
is also the tough part too.
right. Okay,
you won't maintain everything on
thank you.
Tim's comment just gave me a follow-up question. If we have a Volusia Forever land that an Echo project comes in on, maintaining the Echo project portion, can that come out of the maintenance set aside?
So currently the land management set aside does fund the trails, the kiosks, all of that kind of stuff. So if the Echo funded amenity was something fairly low maintenance, right? Like additional kiosk education facilities, a chicky hut, right? That would probably be in the routine maintenance of that property that's handled by the land management staff.
You know, it would be helpful to me and then maybe to our further discussions, just to know what are the improvements funded by the set aside? I mean, how is that used? Now, yeah, it's not a pop quiz. But I am asking.
It's largely maintenance. I mean, it's our crews actually going out and.
Oh, no, I
clearing the
get
trail.
that part.
Okay.
But we're talking, this conversation is expanding. And so as things are, as uses are expanded, I guess my question would be, what is an appropriate use of forever funds for improvements, for future maintenance, for other things? So that would just be helpful, I think, in terms of our discussions. Thank you. If ECHO wanted to do some of these things now, is there anything that prohibits it? I mean, some of these things could happen now, correct?
I believe so.
Okay.
Would it require that they get into the cycle?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
With everybody else.
so when you say that, the answer is, sometime down the line.
And I'm just thinking it can happen, I'm
Right.
just looking for what's.
Without changing the ECHO rules.
Yeah, exactly. What is allowable and what is it, since
Right.
we're both in these cycles of looking at rules, what has to be changed or modified.
I don't think there's language that prohibits. I'm hopeful that the ECHO board would consider putting language that allows, so that it's a little clear that you're interested in that type of a partnership existing. And it could be with the city. If the city's a partner on a small lot acquisition for a project, you could be partnering actually with the city could then make a request for an ECHO grant on a property that they're managing. So then we wouldn't have that responsibility.
I got one example to bring up that might help understand this. So the city of DeBerry we purchased some property, River City Nature Park in DeBerry, right? It was an FCT project, forever money, and we partnered with the city. When they applied for that FCT grant, they had a educational center and I think a tree house, some kind of educational center tree house in their FCT grant, right? So they got the FCT grant, we acquired the property, they put a disc golf course on there, and then they ran out of money for the community center, the educational center treehouse grant. So this would be potentially an opportunity that they can go to ECHO, match with ECHO for that treehouse grant on a property that was acquired with FCT and forever, and then they maintain it. That would be how all this, an example of how all this kind of follow that.
We would just have to determine whether that was considered active or passive on that forever property, as to whether or not that could happen and in what area that would be.
Can I also, and this is just to share with the committee, when, I guess it's Deep Creek, when that came up, I mean, one of the contributions to that acquisition came out of Volusia County Utilities. So, partnerships go beyond some of the usual, we always think of St. John's, other preservationists, but there are other funding sources that have partnered in terms of acquisition of forever properties. And they always have money. Even in
the former utility.
Even in the cities. No, I'm thinking of the cities. There's always going to be some money there.
Any other questions or thoughts that we could answer or you want to ask?
Well, if I could say one thing, I think that connectivity is something we need to look at, and with like all of the projects. And I think we need to look at it really holistically, not just the counties, the city. I mean, the cities have parks, the county has parks, how can all of these things start to come together? For instance, just a couple of weeks ago, we were discussing the plantation oaks. I mean, how can that be tied into something, be it a bike trail, be it, a system? Because when we do look at these maps today, it seems like it's very disjointed. And, when they talk about like wildlife corridors and things going across the state of Florida and things like that, it's all about like connectivity. And I think that when we look to the future for purchases and projects, I think connectivity should be a really important thing. And as Steve brought up, some of these urban locations are actually more endangered. I mean, I think it's really great that so many of the rural areas have been protected so that we don't face the problems that we're facing in urban areas. But there are some ecological areas within any of our communities of Ormond or New Smyrna or Port Orange, down the list, that should try to be like protected now before we lose them. And those are things that should be connected to these trails and bike trails and all these different things. And it's just a comment of mine that I think that we were talking about like how ranking works and things like that. But I think connectivity and how it can be accessed by the public so that, Wanda talked about kids and education. It's so important that they understand our environment and things. So when we're talking about plantation oaks, I'm anywhere between a 6th and a 3rd generation Floridian, depending on how many relatives you count from which side and when. And, I think just like our landscape is worth protecting. I remember driving through Florida as a child and seeing, if I ever see another orange tree, I think I'll like jump out the car. And now you don't see an orange tree at all. And the same thing with on the coast on A1A, it used to be the saw palmettos. And now if it wasn't for Canaveral Seashore, you wouldn't see any undeveloped Florida, landscape. So a lot of our ecosystems are disappearing, or they probably already have disappeared. But I can't be a pessimist. There's always a reason to try to save things and make it better going forward. And just to get back to how all of these investments of public dollars can connect and be best used for our citizens.
That's what our hope is.
And that's what.
I think that's a really important point. And taking it a step further, I mean, one of the ways I think it can be done best by ECHO is to take a more proactive stand. Like I was at the Forever meeting last night and I learned a lot. And I think you guys, you identify properties to match up to corridors and you've got a plan. ECHO has traditionally been more of a reactive body. It's applications that we evaluate. And I've made this point before to the board, but I think we should be more proactive and better plan what we want within the county. In other words, we need more cultural efforts in this area or that, and look at it in a very holistic fashion, which would connect to all these different projects. And that's one of the reasons I'm asking questions about in the county system, who spearheads these efforts, because I think there should be someone that would say, oh, I'm looking at the county at properties that need to be connected, or I'm looking at ECHO projects. And by the way, ECHO is trying to facilitate nonprofits and maybe smaller organizations that we didn't in the past. And so they look at it in total and identify things that we then try to get a nonprofit to support or a city to support in order to get more bang for our buck. And I think there's a lot of synergy there. And a lot of it goes to the connectivity. But, we see these maps, and the maps say, oh, here's all the things you've done. And we always say, well, we'd like a better balance in these things, or we'd like to, well, we have to proactively plan to do that, because otherwise we're just taking what comes in the door. And I think that's a change in perspective for ECHO in general, and we should really look at it. I was going to save that comment for our next meeting because of the recommendations, but I think it was appropriate based on what you said.
Well, I think Jack is correct. I've been on the board for many years, and we don't make recommendations. We just evaluate what comes to us. And try to make the best decision possible. But we don't go out and actively say, you need to do, someone should do this, because we're just evaluating
Right.
the proposals that come to
Yeah,
us.
and what's interesting is that, but that's what Forever does, is that they'll go out and they'll say, this particular piece of property is important to us for these various reasons, and ask if the landowner is interested in selling their property or moving with it. And I think that's terrific. And there's no reason that that type of application couldn't be put into the ECHO plan.
Can I raise one more? As you're talking, I'm thinking about there is a body of property under large DRIs, and I live in one. And some of those DRIs, and I'm thinking now of Farmington, have large conservation easements as part of those DRIs. And I don't know what map kind of brings that into this picture. Because I look at these are all in public ownership, but I'm thinking about some of those large conservation areas in Farmington that would be certainly part of a connectivity issue. Because
We do map those. So we have our conservation coverage, which are the properties that we own, and then we have a conservation easement coverage. And we typically do put those together on maps that talk about how much property in the county is actually conserved, because those conservation easements serve that purpose.
Okay.
And in Farmington, we have two things. We have conservation easements, and in fact, we have some fee simple that was part of that negotiation. So there's some property that we own and manage, the land management folks manage it, and then some of it that's still owned by that owner, but we have easements. But we can show you that. We can put that on a map with the conservation lands. We can overlay the trails on top of that. We can overlay the ECHO projects on top of that. You kind of see those connections.
I think that would be great.
And does the easement map, I know St. John's gets a lot of those.
It doesn't include the regulatory easements. So, but yes, it includes all owners. So it's not just easements that are dedicated to the county. It's easements that would be dedicated to any of the public agencies.
Okay, perfect. Could you include us in that ultimate?
I wrote it on my thing, so
No.
we'll have to work on it.
Yeah, that's quite the mapping little project. I'm sitting here thinking about who gets to work on that. But could you also, yeah, I think it already exists, but I don't have it. Can we get a link to the priority A and B lands?
Yeah, so there isn't a link, but you can absolutely get a copy of the last AB list, which the last list that went to council was in 2009.
Oh, forget it. I've seen that. I thought there was something more recent.
No, but it's still valid. That list is actually still valid. It's just that there's not a lot of money until the new program
Got it.
starts kicking in.
Is
some funds.
that mapped or is it just a
It is both. There is
spreadsheet?
a list and there is a map.
Since we're talking about that, I guess we haven't talked to the current landowners from that list if they're still interested or if they still own it.
Well, we have talked to some because they've approached us. So the purchase that we talked about a couple of weeks ago is on the A list. And then I've had inquiries from at least one other property owner who's on the A list and are still interested. And they're just sort of out there waiting until the program gets up and running. But no, the staff has not proactively reached out to anybody on the list, sort of waiting for this process to finish. Yeah.
So I wanted to say thank you to staff because you guys are incredibly knowledgeable. And it's easy to speak with you, easy to depend on you for answers because I've spoken to several of you independently and it's great to talk to you because you can just rattle stuff off the top of your head in most all cases. And I find that to be very, very helpful and refreshing to know that we can depend upon you for our lack of knowledge in some cases. I've had some great conversations on the ECHO board. I'm glad that you guys are thinking about maybe a proactive stance. There's some things that I think would fall under green infrastructure that you guys might want to consider. I don't know if this is the appropriate time to talk about that stuff, but I would like to see the lands that we have be enhanced using natural processes. So perhaps we can have a conversation on that later, because I think that would add to the value that we've already done by purchasing land. So I'd like to say thank you for the work that you guys are doing. And again, thank you to staff.
All good? I guess you have the gavel.
Gosh, I get the hammer here, so I guess if there's no further comments, should we adjourn this meeting? It has been very, very informational. And I think there's it's really good for these boards to finally see each other,
Yeah.
you know? With that, meeting adjourned.
Did we want to answer about public comments?
Good to ask them
Oh, that's
before the
not
gavel
good.
comes down.
How are you? Kelly, he's here.